Thank you, foster volunteers, for coming today to learn how to care for neonatal kittens. In my survey of the audience this afternoon, I found that most of you do not have any experiences caring for neonatal kittens or kittens who are under 4 weeks old, who have been abandoned by the mother cat. Today, I am here to give you information about the three main things you can do if you find yourself in the position of taking care of a neonatal kitten. As a volunteer for Pet Overpopulation Prevention, or POP, for over 20 years here in the Tri-Cities, I have many experiences caring for cats and kittens, but I had zero experiences caring for young abandoned kittens until this summer. On August 15th, my friend gave me a call and asked me if I knew anyone who could help a very small kitten who his mother had left him to fend for himself. I started to weigh my options. I concluded that the best option was for me to step up and take this fragile kitten into my home because his survival was of the essence. I knew that I needed expert help, so I immediately called my friend and expert and founder of POP, Molly Van Smart, who has extensive experience caring for cats, dogs, puppies, and kittens over the past 50 years. I conducted a phone interview with Molly on August 15th and found out the essential steps to take to care for this young life. I also conducted research on the internet to confirm my friend and expert's advice. From this experience, I have learned that anyone who volunteers as a foster may end up in a similar situation. Therefore, knowing the three important steps to take will enable you to save a vulnerable life. The three steps to take when asked to care for a neonatal kitten are to first provide warmth, second, to gather feeding supplies and to formulate a feeding and caring schedule, and third, to seek out a veterinarian for a health check. The first step to take when asked to care for a neonatal kitten is to provide the kitten with warmth. According to my interview with Molly, keeping the kitten warm is the most important initial step because kittens who are younger than 4 weeks cannot control their body temperature. During my research, which was conducted shortly after my interview, this information was confirmed. On the website catcenter.org, article titled Neonatal Kitten Care, published in 2000 by the San Francisco SPCA, the website states that the greatest single danger to the neonatal kitten is chilling. A kitten that is separated from its mother will not live long. Apart from her warmth, the kitten has no way to maintain a normal body temperature. Prolonged exposure to cold results in a drop of body temperature, known as hypothermia. As the kitten's body temperature drops, the blood sugar level of the kitten falls below normal, which is hypoglycemia. The kitten's internal organs begin a systematic shutdown. The colder the temperature, the sooner the kitten will lapse into a coma and die. This website's information explains how the cold affects the kitten's internal organs. It makes it clear that the most important first step is to replace the mother's heat. A heating pad placed under some towels in a box is a good replacement for her warmth. The SPCA article says the kitten's temperature between 2 to 21 days old will be 96 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The neonatal kitten does not have the ability to constrict its blood vessels. Because of this, the kitten cannot retain body heat and is dependent on the mother cat to keep warm. A heating pad will warm a kitten's body temperature to the temperature identified in the article. I found this to be very helpful, and while the kitten mostly remained on the heating pad in his box, at times he did briefly move away from the heat source. So using a heating pad with towels on top of the pad inside of a protective box is the most critical step in keeping the kitten alive. The second step will address the kitten's nourishment. The second step is to gather kitten supplies for nourishment, to develop a feeding schedule and feed the kitten. Initially, the supplies must be purchased, so Molly sent a shopping list to me for the kitten, and it included kitten milk replacement, or KMR, syringes and bottles, Pedialyte to replace electrolytes, and dry kitten food. The SPCA article also further explains why KMR is important. Cow's milk is in an inadequate substitute for the milk received by a kitten from its mother. The calcium to phosphorus ratio and the lactose levels are too high in cow's milk. The energy, fat levels, and protein are too low to provide adequate growth in a kitten. Human baby formula is also not a good substitute as it provides less than 50% of the protein and fat required for a kitten's growth. This means that cow's milk or human baby formula will not work for a young kitten. Going to a store like PetSmart or Petco is a good place to find KMR. I mix the Pedialyte with the KMR to replace electrolytes. It was a great feeling to see my kitten eagerly eating this liquid food. According to the website bestfriends.org, article titled Bottle Feeding Kittens by Joni Miller, a kitten should eat about 8 milliliters of formula per ounce of body weight per day. For example, a kitten who weighs 4 ounces should eat about 32 milliliters of formula per day. To determine how much to give at each feeding, divide the total amount of formula per day by the number of feedings. For example, if you're going to feed 32 milliliters per day and do 7 feedings per day, which is approximately every 3 hours and the recommended interval, that would mean giving 4.5 milliliters per feeding. Nursing bottles are marked with measurements, so it's easy to know how much you're feeding the kittens. As I implemented the kitten schedule with Molly's help, I found that he had to be awakened because he would sleep through his feedings. Also, we had to work hard in the first few days of having him to get him to eat as much as 4.5 milliliters per feeding. He didn't seem to want to consume the KMR at first, but as time went on, his appetite improved, and he drank eagerly from the milk bottles. Feeding time went from a stressful time to an encouraging time for the kitten and for me. Throughout the feeding and nurturing, I weighed him to make sure he was making appropriate progress. He started under a pound, and he is now up to nearly 2 pounds of pouncing joy. Transitioning a kitten to dry food is also part of feeding, but this doesn't happen until approximately 4 weeks. To wrap up the feeding and scheduling steps, it is important to purchase the supplies, develop a schedule, and then jump into giving the kitten the nourishment that will sustain his health. The last main step is to seek professional help from a veterinarian. The third step is to seek a veterinarian's appointment for your tiny kitten. Of course, if the kitten seems listless or in need of immediate medical care, or if you are not able to warm and feed the kitten, seek a veterinarian's help immediately. In the case of my kitten, he was vibrant and full of energy. So we took the immediate step of warming him and feeding him and then going to the vet the third day. The vet is an essential resource because they are experts and can tell you if your kitten needs further medical care. They can also advise you and reassure you about the steps you are taking to care for your little kitten. My kitten just needed some medication for his eyes. So this brings me to my conclusion. In conclusion, knowing the 3 steps, first, warming a kitten to the right temperature, second, getting the supplies you need to feed the kitten, and then visiting the veterinarian will give you the essential steps to save a life. These steps can be carried out by anyone who is willing to put in the time and effort to make this possible for a young abandoned kitten. In many cases, shelters are not able to take in neonatal kittens due to their lack of resources, which means they do not have the staff or the time, and rescue groups as well have limited volunteers. These steps are the key to ensuring that vulnerable neonatal kittens are warm, fed the right nutrients, and treated by a knowledgeable expert. a veterinarian. These three things will ensure that a neonatal kitten can survive and thrive as he grows. Are there any questions from the audience?